Welcome to the Homefront Podcast, hosted by me, Becky Kupchan. The Homefront Podcast aims to introduce you to the people, initiatives, and ideas shaping Israel from within. Incredibly, this is our 10th episode, and I'm so grateful for all of you for being here on the journey. You know when you're a kid and you're getting to double digits and you get really excited? That's how I feel today. So I wanted to celebrate by going back to exactly what this show is about, the everyday heroes making a difference here in Israel. On today's episode, I'm joined by Becky Kupchan Berman, a resident of Be'er Sheva, who is supporting Israel's army wives through this difficult time. It's my pleasure to say, welcome to the show, Becky.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Becky, for 10 episodes now, I've been asking people the same first question. It's a barometer, and it's a question that I really enjoy asking people. So tell me, Becky, how is your Zionism doing today?
Wow, what a question. It's a good question. I do feel extremely proud to be Israeli, to be in Israel. I do think I have become a little bit of an online warrior, sharing content and making content and trying to spread the truth to the world. But my Zionism is as strong as ever.
So living in Be'er Sheva, it's typically a city that makes a lot of headlines when there's a war with Gaza. This year, for better or for worse, thankfully, Be'er Sheva is not in the headlines. So what has been the wartime experience living in Be'er Sheva been like?
So I will say the October 7th was, just the proximity that Be'er Sheva is to Gaza is frightening. When we heard news that there were terrorists infiltrating in Ofakim, which is a 10-minute drive from Be'er Sheva, it's terrifying. And I live in a private home with a garden. My kids were playing outside all day, in and out of the bomb shelter, literally in and out all day. And it was extremely frightening when we realized that it was really close to us, too close for comfort. And I will say, living in Be'er Sheva, we hear a lot of activity. We hear the planes overhead. We hear booms. We hear noises. My dog is terrified. He's having a hard time. He won't go for walks in the evening. But my kids only know the azakot, the same way that someone living in Tel Aviv or in Rishon LeZion, they had a lot of sirens. We had a similar amount, maybe even less. I don't know the statistics, but it was not as common as it has been in other wars because I think the main target is Tel Aviv. So Be'er Sheva is like the closest city they could get to in previous operations. But now the rockets and the missiles that they launch from Gaza are much bigger, and they're getting to cities further away. So Be'er Sheva is like an afterthought. And there would be 2 weeks between a siren, and we were like, oh, they forgot about us. Great. And we would sort of go on living our lives as much as we could in that time.
When was the last siren that you had?
We had a siren, I want to say about a month ago, that really caught us off guard. It was Friday afternoon, I think 6 p.m. on Friday. My parents were visiting. We do not have a mamad in our house. We have a migunit, it's called. It looks like an igloo that sits in our front yard.
So this is your shelter that you're talking about?
It's our shelter, yes. The shelter that we have is outside in the front yard. And so when a siren goes off, I have little kids at home. I have to pick them up and carry them outside. And they're usually crying or screaming. And it's very loud. The siren is extremely loud because we have to go outdoors. So we run to the shelter, and this Friday afternoon, I was vacuuming. I was getting ready for Shabbat. Everyone was in the house. There was a lot of chaos. And my older son, who's 7, was like, I think there's a siren going off. And I was like, what? What? I didn't believe him.
Do you not even hear it?
I normally would hear it.
Mm-hmm.
It started off low, meaning it was probably in another neighborhood. And then when it came to our neighborhood, it was much louder. Also, I get alarms on my watch and on my phone, and everything started going off at the same time. And we realized, yes, it is a siren. It's not someone vacuuming. And so it caught us off guard, for sure.
And how long in Be'er Sheva do you have from the time of a siren until you should be in shelter?
So we have a minute, which is a long time relative to other places, but it's really short when you're in the middle of cooking or whatever. You have to turn off the stove. You have to find a kid. My husband and I have a game plan of who takes which kid. Hopefully when he's home and we can each take a kid. It's very helpful. When he's not home, I scramble and grab them and run, and it's terrifying. I mean, it's a traumatic experience every time. And when Iran attacked, Be'er Sheva got, I don't even know how many, a slew of rockets overhead that to me was scary because it was coming from Iran. To my kids, they felt like it was just another attack from Gaza, and they were like, okay, but we'll be okay. I didn't know the scale of the Iran attack. So in the middle of the night, when you have to grab your kids from their beds and take them to a shelter, when the sirens are going off nonstop at 1:30 in the morning, it's so terrifying.
It's so interesting to me how different age groups process what we're going through, especially given the length of this war, just the way we're all processing it in different stages of life.
Yes. I will say at the start of the war, I was most concerned about my oldest son kind of finding out what was going on, because he knew that there were sirens, which is something that he has handled before, but we protected him at all costs so that he wouldn't know about infiltrations of terrorists and hostages and all of these things that can be extremely scary for a little kid, especially when it is actually very close to where we live.
How old is your son?
He's 7.5. To take him, he was not in school. We didn't have school for the first month of the war. And so I was able to sort of keep this protective bubble around all of my children, but especially the 7-year-old, to make sure that he didn't hear it from someone else, was like a privilege. And then when he went back to school eventually, I was terrified that he was going to hear about not just the regular things that we all knew about, but about, rumors or stories that a child should not hear. So it was nerve-wracking to me. I think he did eventually hear about the hostages and was curious about it. I explained it that there are people who were taken from their homes and they are with bad people and we need to get them back. I didn't explain that there were little kids taken. I didn't explain that there were grandparents and all these horrible scenarios. But that was enough. And he was like, okay, so we'll pray for them.
That's beautiful. And especially with you, you're not Israeli born. You chose to make Israel and specifically Be'er Sheva your home. So I can only imagine what that means in terms of parenting and the changes from parenting in Chicago versus parenting in Be'er Sheva.
Yes, that's a great point. I do think that someone who made Aliyah from a place of privilege, I chose to live here because I wanted to live here. I did come engaged to my husband, who's Israeli, who has a family here, and we definitely benefited from that support as a young couple. But I'm very aware of, for example, my husband's family who came from Yemen, who didn't come here because they wanted to. They came here because they were escaping persecution. And just walking around in a neighborhood in Be'er Sheva or in Jerusalem, you hear people speaking French or Moroccan people who they do not have another place to go back to. I think people would ask me, are you going to stay in Israel? Are you going to leave? Are you going to move? Do you want to come here for, my friends in America would ask me, do you want to come here for a month?
This is during the war
During the war. And it didn't even enter my mind to leave. I think that I really feel so grounded in Israel, and it's become very apparent to me that this is my home. This is where I feel most at home.
I can only concur. I also had people reaching out to me saying, hey, are you going to come back to Canada to wait this out? I had no desire to leave this country. This is where I belong. This is where I am. With or without my husband, I'm so grateful to have my husband and that he's in the army. So I'm not going anywhere as long as he's in reserve duty. But
definitely,
even without him, this is where we belong. This is where we are. There's no going anywhere else.
That's how I feel. I do have friends who decided to pick up and leave. On October 8th, they were on a plane through Paris, through wherever they could to get out of Israel. And I understand that decision completely. First of all, there was no school for their kids. So how long is this going to go on? And second of all, I think there is, when you feel an existential threat on your existence, on your life, the first thing you want to do is protect your children. I felt like the best way to protect my children was we went to Jerusalem for a few days where my parents live. I'm very fortunate my parents live now in Jerusalem. So we were able to get further away from the situation, basically. But I don't at all blame anyone who decided that this was not for them and that they wanted to just escape, just to maybe feel like an emotional escape. But also the physical threat felt very real on October 7th. And anyone who had that instinct to take their kids and get on a plane and leave, like, that's, good for them. If that's what they needed to do, and they did it.
100%. I don't think it just felt real. It was real.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've decided that you're staying in Israel during the war. You've crossed that bridge, and then you decide that you're going to start helping society. You're going to start helping the wives of IDF reserve soldiers, and you've done incredible things since then.
Thank you. I really started this project that I'm now calling Project Eishet Chayal. I had really close friends in Be'er Sheva, but also in other parts of the country who suddenly found themselves single parenting during the most emotionally challenging, stressful environment and this society that was grieving so intensely. And all of a sudden, their person left home. And so they had to not only take care of their kids who didn't have school, but also be, the grounding parent of the household. And I really felt for them. And if I wasn't going through that myself, luckily my husband was home. He's not in reserve duty, so he was home with me the whole time. But that gave me the headspace to think, what can I do for them? I wish I could make lasagnas for every one of my friends every night, but it's not realistic. And I have 3 kids of my own to take care of. So I had this idea to send Wolt gift cards. Wolt is Israel's like Uber Eats meal delivery service, whatever you want to call it. I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could just send them 200 shekels and they can order whatever they want, whenever they want, like whatever. If they want to order pizza for their kids, they can. If they want to spoil themselves and order in sushi and eat it at 9 p.m. when their kids are sleeping, great. So I wanted to help moms in a way that would just like relieve them even the tiniest bit. And it turned into this incredible project that I did not foresee happening. But I am really indebted to my community, my Facebook friends, my Instagram friends, followers. People really stepped up. And I posted once that I have this idea. If anyone knows in your life someone who is a mom who is taking care of kids and their husband is in reserve duty, this is a great way to help them. And here's one way. You can send them a Wolt gift card and you can order it online and it's very easy and you send it to them. And I had, I don't know how many, 10, 15 messages come in that were like, I don't know anyone like that, but could you help me? Could you do that? I'll send you money and you can send it to whomever. And it started really slow where I was like actually connecting my friends to people in America who would send them a gift card. And then it got to be much bigger. And I was like, okay. And people who I would send a mom a gift card and she would respond, thank you so much. This is beautiful. And then she would say, my neighbor is also in this situation. Could you send a gift card to my neighbor? And I was like, yeah, I'll find a way to do that. And I started raising money. Like I just reached out to people I know. I didn't even reach out personally. I just posted it as a story on my Instagram feed. And I was like, if anyone wants to send me money, this is the way to do it. And I started collecting money, and I would immediately take the funds that I got and send it out to moms. And the moms that I was reaching are um, Israeli moms who don't necessarily have the network that I have. And I felt like, okay, if I can take my connections and my network and leverage it to help people in Israel, like what a beautiful concept. So it started small and then it snowballed and got much bigger, and people were sending me contacts of moms they know in Israel, and other people were sending me money, and I was able to make these connections. And I personally reached out to each one of the moms, and I didn't tell them in advance like, hey, someone sent me your number. I literally was just like, here's a voucher for meal delivery for Wolt. And this is money that I raised from people in America who want to help Israeli moms in this difficult time. And I'm sending you a lot of strength and a lot of love. And it just comes from like the best place, and enjoy.
What I love about the approach that you've taken is that it would have been very easy for you to say, I want to help IDF soldiers' wives, but to keep it within the English-speaking world. And you specifically sought out the Israelis who are going through this very difficult experience. So what were your thoughts at that time? What led you to get to that point?
So I do have a lot of close friends who are Anglos who also were going through such a challenging time, but they had networks and they had people sending them money or gift cards or different like Anglo communities that were taking care of each other, because that's what happens. In the Israeli community, that's not happening. And if your mom or your savta, your grandmother, isn't making you couscous every Tuesday, no one's providing food for you. No, there's no network of like meal delivery happening in many, many circles that I've encountered. And so this is like the smallest drop in the bucket that like it's just a one time. It's 200 shekels for most families, and I'm like, here you go, enjoy. And the feedback that I got from these women was so emotional. People would send me voice messages or pictures of them and their kids, and just like I got messages from people who were crying and really overwhelmed with emotion because it caught them so off guard, and they were so grateful. Just the thought that someone was thinking of them. Someone wanted to help them, and it's someone they don't know, and it doesn't matter who it is. Just the fact that someone had them in mind was very meaningful to them.
What you're doing really brings to mind for me really how the state was established was Jews worldwide supporting the Jews in Israel, and just doing it for a sake of these are our people, our heart is with you.
That's really nice. That's how it felt. I also know that talking to my friends and my family abroad, they didn't know what to do with themselves. In the wake of October 7th, the American Jewish community was scrambling. They wanted to give their money away. They wanted to help in any way they could. Who can we help? This person's raising money. That person's raising money. Our synagogue is raising a fund to rehabilitate the kibbutzim. All these different projects were going on, and it was like overwhelming in the best way. I really saw from my American Jewish friends how much they were looking for where to give their funds. And so when I proposed this idea and just said like anyone's welcome, people jumped at the chance. And when immediately I would get, my inbox was flooded with Zelle transfers. You just got this much, you just got this much. And from people I went to elementary school with, people I went to camp with a million years ago, so many people I'm in touch with, not in touch with, my family, their friends. It was like an amazing network of people appeared out of nowhere and were like, yes, we want to help.
And you've raised quite a sum from all of this help.
Yes, I've now raised $12,000, which is like 43,000 shekels, something like that. And I have sent 43,000 shekels worth of Wolt gift cards to moms in Israel. I keep waiting for Wolt to flag my account because I'm like, how can I spend so much money on this account without them noticing? But it seems to me that is the most helpful thing for a mom who's, I mean, I know if I was stuck at home with my 3 kids, the last thing I would want to do is make dinner for them every night. So I know that getting this Wolt gift card is so small, but it helps so much just for one night or for 2 nights or however long they can make it last. I know that it's meaningful to them, and it's not the dollar amount, it's not the money amount, it's the love that's behind it.
It's the peoplehood.
Yes. Yes.
So in addition to having this great network abroad, you also are clearly networking to find these mothers, these recipients of this generosity. So how are you finding them?
In the beginning, it was purely word of mouth. Either the mom I would send to would come back to me and say, my best friend's husband has been in Gaza for 7 months. Can you send her a gift card? And I'm like, yes. And I will find a way to raise money so that I can do that. Or I would run into someone on the street and they would just like pour out and say, it's been so hard. My husband's away. He's up north. I don't know where he is. And my kids are driving me nuts. And then I would go home later that day and send them a gift card and say, this is from money I've raised from my friends abroad who want to support you. And like just that like little moment would help so much. I think that I did reach out to groups of moms. Like in Be'er Sheva, there's definitely a whole network of moms who are making meals for each other. It's really beautiful. And I was in touch with them, but they are on a much larger scale. So I couldn't send to their whole list. Every time I've raised money, it's been like a nice sum, but not enough for 100 people or whatever, because I'm doing this on my own and it's such a small operation. So I would get like a handful of moms each time and I would raise money for them. And then that money would be gone and I would find another group of moms and raise money for them. So I once reached out to a former colleague of mine who said, I'm doing fine. My husband is away, but his company has sent me a lot of like gift cards and whatever. And like, I really don't need it, but thank you so much. And then she was like, my husband's unit has 8 fathers in it. And they like, could you send to their wives? And I was like, yeah, I could send to this unit. And so I sent to the whole unit and they don't know me at all. And I was like, I'm Becky. I'm in touch with your husband through this woman. It was like a very weird way of communicating, but they were so appreciative. And the fact that I was able to help this whole unit really was like, it felt like such an achievement to me. And then I did it again. A neighbor of mine was serving in the Arava. And I know that he's a reservist. He's 40 or over 40 even. And I knew that his unit is like older people. They all have families at home. And so I asked him if I could send to his unit and he was overjoyed. I sent to his whole unit and then they made a video thanking the donors. So it's been really powerful. And the moms sort of come out of nowhere. Like as soon as I interact with a mom who is in this situation, I'm like, yes, I will find a way to raise more money and I will send it to you as soon as I can.
Every story you share is absolutely touching. And you did mention that you're a small operation. You're doing this all on your own. So what's keeping you going? Because this is now months that you've been doing this.
I think that because I never served in the Army and certainly am not about to volunteer for the IDF at my age and my stage of life, this was like the way that I could help in the war effort. I do feel like everyone in their own way has found something, some way to volunteer, some way to find meaning in this madness and sort of be able, everyone is looking for a way to be able to get through it because it's really challenging. It's really, really hard to be present in Israel and not think about hostages all the time and not think about all the people who are, serving their country and giving their lives. And it's really heartbreaking. Every day is heartbreaking. And so I found this way to, first of all, connect with these women, which has given me so much koach, so much strength, but also a way to help my American community funnel their love, and they want to help also. And so I feel like I'm in this unique position where I'm able to help them help Israelis. And so it's been really meaningful to me. And I take breaks. It hasn't been ongoing. I'm sure if I was only doing this, I would have already been on a much larger scale. To date, I've sent to 220 women. And each one of those women is a personal WhatsApp from me to them. And they're thanking me, and they're emotional, and they're so appreciative. And it's like a little bit of a spark of love that I get back also. And I do try as much as I can to share it with the people who've donated, and to let them know that this is happening, and thank you so much. And they're thanking you, and I'm thanking you. But it's really been so meaningful to me.
So in addition to doing this Project Eishet Chayal, you also work for Ben Gurion University in Be'er Sheva. And there's been a lot of talk around the world of campuses and university culture when it comes to Jewish students. So what has it been like working in academia right now?
I am also earning my MBA. So I'm also a student at BGU. And aside from that, walking around on our campus is so soothing. After watching all the protests and all the vehement anti-Semitism that you see abroad, it's so refreshing. I walk around BGU campus and you see people from all walks of life. You see Bedouin Israelis, you see Arab Israelis, you see international students from China and India, and people who have come from really, really far away to study in Israel. And I think it's literally soothing to me to see our campus get along in this bizarre ecosystem that feels like a bubble where everyone is there to study and politics are aside and everyone is accepted for who they are. And any religion is accepted and any background is accepted. And obviously the majority on our campus is Jewish Israelis. And it wouldn't even enter their mind space to make someone the other. The campus is so integrated and so diverse. And Ben Gurion University, specifically because we're located in the South, we do get a lot of Bedouins from the South, but also Bedouins from the North. There's a large Bedouin population. And you see it and you feel it. And just the other day, there was an Arab book fair in the main quad. There's no issue there. And it's soothing to my soul to see this coexistence happening. It happens every day. It's not because of the war. It has actually nothing to do with the war. And it just is. That's just the reality in Israel on campuses. So I think that's an important thing that people don't think about.
If we're going to talk about universities, I think it's important for people to know that most of the time universities start class a week after Simchas Torah. So a week after what would have been October 7th. A week later, they were meant to restart their semester. So what was campus like early in the war and now?
On October 7th, because of the proximity of Be'er Sheva to Gaza and the massacre at the Nova site, so many injured people were brought to Soroka Hospital, which is located in Be'er Sheva. It's the closest hospital in the region. And from what I understand from the university, 500 medical students showed up on Saturday, on October 7th, to help in the hospital.
That's incredible.
It was all hands on deck. Students who were not called up, they just came. They were like, okay, this is happening now, and I need to be there. And and all of the health sciences, not just medical students, but nursing students and everyone, people who had never dealt with a bullet wound were helping to heal or put people in surgery. And it was an incredible movement to get people the immediate attention that they needed, but also the grassroots initiatives on campus like spiraled out of control. There was an emergency response team that they set up in the student center. In the main student center, they started collecting goods and supplies and helping people who had been evacuated from their homes, helping them gathering books and clothes and things for kids, and just everything. That there were WhatsApp groups that they opened, and all of this happened October 8th, like immediately after the war, after the initial attack. And BGU students have like a reputation of being very innovative and very action oriented and social action, and it really showed in the aftermath of October 7th. BGU students were on the forefront. They were ready to go. I think something like 20% of the student population was drafted. Huge population of the student body is serving in reserves, and many of them still are. And those who aren't were like put into action, volunteering, setting up, organizing volunteer days in agriculture, on the kibbutzim or nearby, where they could any help that they could give, they were doing it. Because of BGU's proximity to in the South, our location in the South, many of our faculty and our students live in the Gaza border communities. And so every day we were hearing about new people who their nephew or their brother or their son were killed or were taken hostage or were otherwise, affected by the war. The community was very deeply impacted by October 7th, and it took a long time for faculty and staff and students to come back to campus, not just because of the delayed semester, but because it was such a hard blow to the community. And of course, Noah Argamani is a student at BGU. So she was sort of the face of the hostage movement for the BGU community. And every single classroom at BGU has an empty chair with Noah's face on it. Like, we're waiting for you.
How did that start?
There were several students that were killed on October 7th, either from the Nova Festival or from people who lived on the Gaza border communities. And I mean, that's heartbreaking on its own. And definitely there is also a memorial set up in the student center where all of their faces are shown with candles and space for them, absolutely. But because Noah was meant to be starting her third year as an undergraduate student at BGU, and she was like literally meant to start whatever engineering faculty she's in, her friends and her teachers are waiting for her to come back. Like it's her presence is missed on campus. And she was, 1 minute she's there and the next minute she's not. And I think that dissonance was really hard for the campus community to get over. And so there was like an initiative that every single classroom on campus has an empty chair, and like we are all waiting for her. And so now she's been rescued, and it's like this incredible story. Be'er Sheva in general, she lives in Be'er Sheva. Also, her parents live in Be'er Sheva. And so Be'er Sheva is like thrilled that Noah Argamani has been returned, and the campus is, overwhelmed with excitement that our this hostage that we've all been praying for, everyone knows her name, we've all seen her face, we think about her every day, we see her face, and so now she's been rescued, like in this incredible operation. It's really powerful.
You've experienced a lot of hard things during this war, and you have risen up in so many ways. So I'm curious, from your perspective, how was Israeli society changing during this war?
I think the biggest thing I noticed at the start of this war was how much grief there was, like collective grief of our community, our society. I had never experienced that before in Israel. And I think it happened because the attack on October 7th happened on the Gaza border communities, but not only. It happened also at this Nova Festival where there were kids and friends and neighbors and nephews of people from all over Israel. Everyone in Israel was impacted by what happened on October 7th. And I think that it impacted society so powerfully. I think the hardest thing to get over was the grief that we all felt. Like everyone, the news that kept coming out day after day, there was more and more and more news of these horrible stories that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy, and things that were reminiscent of what happened in the Holocaust, or what, things that you read about on Tisha B'Av, in Eicha, in the book that you read on Lamentations. Like horrible atrocities that happened to the Jewish people in Israel. And we feel responsible for it. And we feel like this is like we didn't protect our people enough. And we needed to do more, and we didn't do enough to protect our people. And we don't have the coping mechanism to deal with all of this grief at the same time. And just the amount of funerals and the amount of Shiva calls and so much death. I mean, a person is not prepared for that. And I think that was like the biggest challenge that Israel faced. What's incredible to me is how that grief motivated people to find the pockets of society where they could help. And immediately, like instantly, there were WhatsApp groups organizing people where they could donate food, where they could donate furniture, where they could donate clothes. I got a message on October 7th in the evening looking for a nursing mother who could donate milk because they found a baby who didn't have a mother. Like, that really broke me. But everyone is looking out for everyone else. Everyone knows that you're going through a hard time. When you see someone, you say, "How are you?" You know how they want to respond, but they can't respond like that. So they're going to say everything's okay. Everyone is going through this together. And I think that togetherness is really, really makes the bond here feel so strong. And that's also another reason why I would never leave Israel, because everyone here knows exactly what I'm going through, and we're going through it together. And I think that's like an incredible superpower.
So on this 10th episode, I'm going to ask you the same question I've been asking every guest at the end of every episode. What is giving you hope today?
I don't want to sound cheesy, but I'm going to say my kids. I look at my kids and the way that they are so resilient without even knowing that they're being resilient. And they look at things with just so much optimism and so much hope. And I think it honestly helps me. It helps me focus on what is real and what we need to do to get through this, and focus on being there for them and making sure that they're happy and they're taken care of. And I think that gives me hope that I'm raising this next generation of Israeli people who will hopefully have a better future.
That's beautiful. Becky, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been really a great experience. Thank you.
And thank you to all of you for being here for our 10th episode. Absolutely incredible that we've made it this far. Thank you to Naomi Studios. And if you want to follow the Homefront Podcast, follow us on social media and make sure to go ahead and smash that subscribe button to support the people of Israel. We'll see you on the next episode.